number of the number of participants appears to be kind of fairly stable. So welcome. Thank you so much for coming to this information session on Year 12. It's great to have so many families with us. We are just going to do some really quick introductions just so you can kind of see our faces even though it is remote. And then what we'll do is we'll give you a bit of a whistle-stop tour really about how LaSWAP works, some of the kind of key features that we expect to be relevant over the course of the next 2 or 3 years for some students, as well as kind of some key dates at the very end. Throughout there'll be some kind of, we'll make this is being recorded, so it will be available for you to go back to, and the presentation will also be put online. So if there are things that you miss, please don't worry. But also if you have questions as we go, please put those in the question and answer session, and we'll do our very best to answer those whilst we're live, but if not, we'll get back to you. So I will start. I'm Ella Schlesinger. I am the director of LaSWAP, but also director of Sept at Parliament Hill School. If we just do some quick introductions, I think we've got Anna. There you go, Anna's here.
Hello everybody, I'm Anna Remington. I'm the director of Key Stage 5, so head of sixth form at Ackland Burley School. We've also got Rebecca.
Good evening everybody, my name's Rebecca Field. I'm the director of sixth form at La Santa Union School.
Flora?
Hiya, I'm Flora Wilson. I'm director of sixth form at William Ellis School.
Hi everyone, I'm Rebecca Russell. I'm Associate Director of LaSWAP and based at Parliament Hill School.
And hi everyone, I'm Laura Piercy. I'm also Associate Director of LaSWAP and I am based at Ackland Burley.
So just a quick, there you go, a quick run through of who the directors are across the 4 schools and also the directors of LaSWAP. I'm just going to start, if we move on to the next slide, please. I am just going to start by just kind of sharing with you a little bit of key information about LaSWAP. It is one of the oldest sixth form, well, it's the oldest sixth form consortium in London. And that means that we have 4 schools that work together incredibly closely, as hopefully tonight will demonstrate. But they are still kind of 4 separate institutions. So you have the overarching umbrella that is LaSWAP, so lots of things that are centralised, but also lots of things that are unique to the individual schools. And one of the things that makes LaSWAP so unique is that students get to experience a little bit of all of that. It is it is the largest school-based sixth form in Camden, and that means that we are able to operate as schools, which is really important. We're not a college. We have we are smaller than colleges. We have a much kind of more a much stronger pastoral support system than a lot of colleges will have, and we still operate like schools. So school rules still exist. They're still members of our school community, and it really is a unique place for students to come, but for also for staff to work. We have an unrivaled course offer, as lots of you will know. We do our very best to accommodate pretty much any combination of courses that students qualify for. It's not always possible, but on the whole, we do manage to find accommodation. And that means that we have a really vibrant and diverse intake. We are truly comprehensive, and that is something that we are very, very proud of. We have students who maybe are doing level 2 courses and a 3-year sixth form, but we equally have students who go off to Oxbridge and to do medicine and veterinary science. So we are truly comprehensive, and that makes it a really fantastic place for students to be, but also for staff to work at. If we just move on, thank you. The schools, as I said, we are a school sixth form, and there are the 4 head teachers, and so they have oversight of the sixth forms as well. So Sophie Fegan at the Santa Union, Izzy Jones at William Ellis, Nick John at Ackland Burley, and Sarah Creasy at Parliament Hill. So tonight, as I said, we're just going to talk a little bit through really, I guess, how it works, how do those qualifications work, how do things fit together, the pastoral care that we have, what studying at the SWAP looks like, and then enrichment, and then thinking about maybe some of those kind of things that maybe seem quite a long way at the moment, like university and apprenticeships, but actually kind of trying to be realistic about the work that needs to happen in year 12 for students to kind of make that process as smooth as possible in year 13. So students are all based at one of the 4 schools. So they will have been given a tutor group at that school. They will have been given the overwhelming majority of students, but it means that they will have lessons at that school. So if, for example, they are based at Ackland Burley, they will be given a red lanyard. They'll have a tutor group at Ackland Burley, and that will be the school that is responsible for that student. So they are the school that oversees their pastoral care, their well-being. They look after that student. But one of the joys of LaSWAP is that it might mean they have lessons elsewhere. And we talk often about the fact that it's a really fantastic stepping stone between going to university or off to an apprenticeship or into the workplace, because it allows them to start to experience what another school is like, or possibly 2 schools. It allows them to have a bit more independence. It allows them to have a little bit more freedom as they get to work around those 4 schools. And we are in really close vicinity of each other. So lots of you will know where those schools are, but Parliament Hill and William Ellis have a shared study space. LaSanta Union is just opposite, and Ackland Burley, despite what young people might say, it is only about an 8-minute walk from those 3 schools over towards Tufnell Park. Any requests that they might have for a shuttle bus are not necessary at the moment. So lessons can be at any of the LaSWAP schools, and there are some subjects that are only taught at one LaSWAP school. So classics, for example, is only taught at LSU. Product is only taught at Parliament Hill. So some of those subjects will dictate how students' timetables have been put together. Students have, just like in lower school, if you have been to one of the 4 LaSWAP schools at Key Stage 3 or Key Stage 4, they have what we call a 2-week timetable, so a fortnightly timetable, and we work with week A and week B. So it rolls around on a fortnightly system. You can see that there are, if maybe we move on to the next slide, that would be great. You can see that there are some gaps in student study, in the student timetable, which is different to Key Stage 3 and Key Stage 4. So if students are doing A-levels, they will be on 10 hours of lessons a fortnight. So that would be, if they're doing 3 A-levels, which is a kind of typical picture, they would be doing 30 hours of what we would call contact time over the fortnight. So that can look like they have a lot of non-contact time. Students might be tempted to call this free periods. We would like to call them study periods, or as I said, non-contact periods. And we really, really encourage students are in really good study habits coming through year 10 and 11 or the whole of their school life. We really encourage them to try and stick to those study habits, to use or to think about their day as being fully timetabled, so that they have they use the study spaces that are available in each of those schools in those non-contact times to do work that is set outside of the lessons. And we'll talk a little bit more later on about the kind of expectations around work. We do have registration. So just like lower down the school, we have registration for the whole of year 12. If they have a lesson at one of the other schools, so if they're based at William Ellis, but they have a lesson at Ackland Burley, their tutor will talk to them about going straight to Ackland Burley. That's fine. But we do really encourage them to attend registration. It's compulsory. And it's when lots of enrichment opportunities, lots of the things that are happening in the school day, that's when they're shared, just like lower down the school. And it's also about establishing really good learning routines. You will be able to see, and you'll be getting a copy of your child's timetable, who their teacher is and the school that it's taught. So you can see that most of these lessons are prefixed with LSU. So PE, LSU, that's the school it's taught at. And it's got the name of the teacher underneath it. So, and we'll get to email addresses in a minute. Period 3, every Monday, is what we call tutorial period. And that is taught by our team of sixth form tutors across the 4 schools. It is a compulsory lesson. And it's how we deliver some of those really important pastoral, the pastoral curriculum. So it could be around healthy relationships, it could be about finance, it could be, and this is how we deliver the UCAS program as well. The tutor, who tends to stay with the class for 2 years, they will be the person who writes that UCAS reference. And there's been lots of change to how UCAS works, which you might have heard about. And that's really important, that the tutor is getting to know that person as best as possible, because the tutor will have to provide really kind of bespoke personal information. The better the tutor knows the student, the easier it is to write a really excellent reference. So that's the timetable. If we move on, this is the times of the school day. The majority of lessons are periods 1 to 5. There are the odd lesson that is timetabled, and schools use this differently, into what we call twilight, so period 6. And that again will come up on the timetable. So there are numbers of lessons where they will maybe teach period 5 and period 6. They tend to run right through. And again, lots of students will have double lessons. So they will be taught periods 1 and 2. And then there's enough time for students to move across the sites if they need to get to periods 3 and 4 or period 5. If we move on, brilliant. There are some, as a result of having these 4 schools, there are some really kind of clear expectations that we have of students, and they have been really, really brilliant at this. They have pretty much now all been given an ID badge, and they've all got card holders and lanyards. We ask that they wear those at all times. Students, and many of you as parents and carers, will have signed the learners agreement, and that's a really important document for us, which we go back to. We ask, and wearing an ID badge is intrinsic to that. It's really central to that. So we ask that students arrive on time for their lessons. That's really important as well. And we ask that they follow the rules in the school that they are in. All of the 4 schools pretty much have identical behaviour policies and the same expectations of students. And it's really important that as Year 12, they're starting to recognise that they are some of the older students in the school, so that they become role models for those younger people around them. And sometimes that can be quite challenging, because it's quite a big transition going from Year 11 to Year 12. But for some of the kind of basic things that we ask would be that mobile phones are kept away in the main school buildings, headphones are off, that they have that they're respectful of the wider school rules, and that they're kind to each other and to staff. That's really important. We are a really diverse community, and central to that is the fact that we treat everyone with respect and kindness. The other expectation that I'm just going to share with you is around dress code. We've had this has been written in consultation with our student council. So the last year's Year 12 student council had quite a lot of input into this, and we talk very much about having a gender neutral dress code, which is on the whole just about actually keeping them safe. So no flip-flops, for example, a kind of unbroken line of clothing. It's about kind of sensible clothing for school to make sure that students are able to be prepared to go into the workplace or to interview if they need be, so that doesn't come as a shock for them. Okay, I'm now going to hand over to Anna, who's going to talk a little bit about the pastoral assistant.
Okay, so Ella has talked already about that tutorial period, period 3 on Mondays, which is compulsory for your child. And I just wanted to share a bit about, as Ella said, that LaSWAP, one of the real pluses around LaSWAP is the school system. We're sort of both big and small, so have a big, wider environment, but each school operates a really close and protective pastoral care system. And so you've got on the graphic there, you understand you've got the 4 different schools, and each of the schools will have the directors of sixth who are talking to you tonight. And then there's also, just as you'd be familiar with in Year 11 and lower down schools, you'll have a head of year. And so for Year 12 and Year 13, Ackland Burley, we share it. So both heads of year are accountable for both year groups. But your child will have that head of year contact, as you've been familiar with. And then, as Ella said, your child will also have a tutor. So a really good question to ask your child if you're not sure is what school are they based at, if you're not sure, because they may be having lessons in 3 different schools. So to be clear about what school they're based at, and you can tell that from the colour of their lanyard as well, or the badge holder corresponds to the different schools, and also who their tutor is. Now, by this point, they absolutely should be clear who their tutor is, because they should have been coming into AM registration. So do ask them that question, because your child's tutor will be the first port of call for any kind of concerns or questions that you have, and it probably the tutor will be able to answer it themselves. If they can't, they'll be able to direct you to absolutely the right person. I know some tutors have already started making contact with their tutees. Don't worry if and families, if you haven't heard anything from your child's tutor yet, please don't panic. That will come over the next couple of weeks, just as the tutor groups settle down. Sometimes people move schools and so on, so we sort of want to wait until all those tutor groups are really settled. So if we can just move on to the next slide. So your tutorial program, Mondays, period 3, and the registrations in the morning. It's all about, I won't read all the bullet points out, but it's all about supporting this part of our kind of spine, the pastoral spine of what we do. And missing out on those sessions means you miss out on all the sort of opportunities that we are making your child aware of. Just in case you're not quite sure about our RSHE, that's relationship, sexual and health education. So there's a whole program, obviously, on Mondays where we do all of our, we call it personal development curriculum. We have some fabulous outside speakers coming in. One of the highlights from last year, for example, was Grayson Perry, who came in and did a talk at Ackland Burley, but all of the sixth formers in Year 12 were invited from LaSWAP in order to hear that speech. So it's shared. It's not just something that we do in our silos in our school. If we move on from the next slide, so we obviously, our minimum expectation for attendance is 100%. I'm not telling you anything you don't know, but the correlation between attendance and attainment is really, really, really clear. One important thing that you need to understand, and sixth formers sometimes get this a bit confused, because we do treat them in a more of a grown-up way as they are making that transition to adulthood. When there are absences, student absences do still need to be authorised by an adult. So even if your child is 18, they're not going to be 18 most likely in Year 12 unless they're on a 3-year sixth form. But even when they're 18 in school, attendance and absence needs to be authorised by an adult. So please take a note, and again we'll have these up for you later on as well, of the absence line and email and phone number there. So this might be a good slide to take a photo of or flick back on later on. And very, very important thing to say at this point is we know that lots of sixth formers seek paid employment. We understand the reasons for that in Year 12, and it's very common that students have part-time jobs. I would like to stress the fact that those jobs should be part-time. Students should not be accepting shifts within the time of the school day, even if they have study periods. As they like to say, they are free lessons. They're not free lessons, that's independent study time. So working at weekends and in the evenings, as long as that's not interfering too much with schoolwork, is of course absolutely fine. We understand that's something students want to do, but shifts should not be taken during the times of the school day. And again, to try and make all medical appointments and other appointments as far as possible. I know that can be really tricky, and do send in evidence of those appointments in your communication with the different schools. So attendance and absences, any reasons for that and appointments, that goes to your child's base school rather than the LaSWAP generic contact details. Okay, so if we can go on to our next slide. This is just an important step ladder. I won't take you through all of the different stages, but have a look at the screen and you can see the sort of pathway that we go through where there are issues around attendance. And it's starting with the subject teacher, leading on to the tutor, and then there's an escalation up through the head of year, director of sixth form. We convene governors panels where there are students with particularly poor attendance, and then if there's still no improvement, we have a follow-up with a head and potentially an exit interview because the student is simply not doing their part of the contract with us at LaSWAP. One thing to point out is that over the next week or so, teachers are going to start using the lateness protocol with students. Now, students, your child should know where their lessons are, what time they start, what school they are, their lessons take place in, and their timetable is kind of solidified. Teachers can and will be asking students to do the work outside of classes if they are more than 15 minutes late. 50 minutes late, you know, you've basically missed a huge chunk of a 1 hour lesson, haven't you? That student will be given work will be uploaded to Teams. They are not to go home. They'd be asked to work in the common room, the study centre. If that is a double lesson, of course, they need to come back for the second part of the double lesson, but we absolutely need them in class from the beginning of the lessons and punctual in the morning, particularly for period 1 in the morning, which begins at 8:50, definitely not 9 o'clock. Okay, if we move on. Again, this slide you may well want to take a picture of because it's got all of the contact details for people who are talking today and the heads of year. And this will be communicated to you in various different ways as well. And it'll be on, obviously it's on the presentation you can flick back onto. One thing to point out is just the way the emails addresses work at the different schools, because if you do want to contact the teachers in the different schools, you can see the way it works. At most of the schools, it's a first initial and then a surname at the particular school. The only exception is William Ellis, where Caroline Smith, the head of year, you can see is a surname. All of them at William Ellis are just a surname, apart from the lovely Miss Wilson, who has her first initial, so she's the only exception. And I'm just going to pass on now to Miss Wilson, who's going to talk about how you can help your child achieve their best in sixth form. Thanks, Flora.
That's a pleasure. Thank you. And yeah, hello to everybody. Yes, just to explain, Wilson's such a common surname that I have to differentiate myself from others. Anyway, so I'm talking to you about how you can help achieve your help your child achieve their best. I don't want to patronise you all. I mean, this is a lot of what we've got on the slide is just very common sense, good parenting. Okay, it's about really talking to them, talking to your children or talking to your son, your daughter, making sure that you can help them try and find solutions to their problems and really address any challenges that they have. So we all know the temptation, especially when you're a teenager, perhaps, is to, if something is challenging or difficult, is to really kind of bury your head in the sand about it and put off doing that difficult piece of homework or whatever. So actually, we would ask for your support in kind of talking through the challenges that the difficulties that they might be facing and helping them break it down. So helping them kind of think about how to break down their workload into more manageable chunks so they don't feel overwhelmed and stressed. You know, breaking up that big picture into those smaller manageable chunks, but also to help them establish some perspective. I think at this stage of life, it's very easy to kind of feel that everything is riding on, you know, their success on these courses, and especially people who perhaps were disappointed with their GCSE results. That's really, you know, it's really important to kind of establish that perspective about, well, you know what, not everything, you know, failure is, or, you know, difficulties is actually a part of that journey to success, because it's not without, it's, you know, without kind of coming to terms or overcoming those challenges, you cannot make good progress and you cannot achieve success educationally at this level. So it's really important to establish that perspective that just because they're finding something difficult, it doesn't mean to say that they're going to fail the course. And part of that, I think, is also establishing those really healthy, kind of a really healthy work-life balance. I know it's much easier said than done to encourage teenagers to go to sleep early, but, you know, regular sleep patterns, good exercise habits, good nutrition, good hydration, you know, all help to achieve success. Yes, so that's pretty much that. So next slide, please. Yeah. So part of that kind of establishing that kind of healthy balance and that well-being that's so important to educational success is we provide that through the talk curriculum. Tutor period has already been mentioned, and that's really, you know, part of that tutor curriculum is about that proactive kind of support for well-being and ensuring that our young people can meet the challenges that are facing them, both in school and out of school. We do teach a lot about kind of how to develop resilience and how to deal with this stress, especially at exam periods and things like that. The tutor is also really important in terms of a wellbeing support, because your tutor is, you know, the main point of contact really for both you as a parent and you as a student. I know that I'm talking to a mixed audience here. Okay, it's really important that you use your tutor to kind of help you navigate some of the issues that you're facing, and that, you know, the tutor really acts as the main point of contact into school from home if there are difficulties that parents think that we need to be aware of, but it's also the tutor kind of signposts help and acts as the main point of contact outside. So from the students, you know, can refer on to different specialist services or signpost extra support within school to help students overcome those challenges and make sure that they are getting the support they need to ensure that they are kept well. In all senses of the word. It's also important to note that the tutor will write references for our young people, whether that is a UCAS reference or a reference for an employment opportunity or apprenticeships. So it's quite important that the tutors get to know the students, so really kind of use them. And the last thing that I know will be talked about in a minute, the tutor can talk, and it's also important for references, the tutor can signpost really useful, good enrichment opportunities that will really fit each individual student really well. So that's what we do in terms of wellbeing support, and that's how we get to know your son or daughter really well, and therefore use that information not only to help them with their wellbeing, but to help them with their next steps. Okay, if we move on now, okay, this is a really important thing to think about as well. So some of you will be families who have qualified for free school meals in the past. That if you qualify for free school meals, you need to make sure that that is still live when your child is in the sixth form. As soon as a young person in the sixth form qualifies for free school meals, they then receive the student bursary. How that works is that they have to fill in a form, and they have to have proof of their free school meal status. But then what happens is that if a young person is attending all of their lessons, they get paid a sum of money per week. Now, it's paid half-termly, so there'll be a good dollop after the half-term holiday or after the holiday at the end of the term. The dollop is paid in one lump sum, and it's paid direct to the student, and it's to support their costs of education really, and that's really important. It's an important financial contribution to a lot of students' household budgets, we know that, and it enables them to stay in education, but it is also quite important because it opens the door to lots of different opportunities. Lots of universities, for example, give contextual offers to those students who are in receipt of a bursary. So please do not be shy in coming forward to apply for those different things, because it can be a really helpful source of income, but as I say, an important stepping stone in terms of other enrichment programs, but also university places actually. So talking about university places and kind of building good habits and making sure that we can have success, homework and independent study. We've said, I think both of my colleagues that have spoken so far have talked about the fact that we have study periods, not free periods. And the reason for that is really important. As Miss Schlesinger said earlier on, 10 hours a fortnight is an A-level course. That's just an example. So the different courses might have different teaching hours, but whether you're doing a level 2 Cambridge Technical, a Sport NVQ, a BTEC in business, or a BTEC in performing arts, or an A-level in whatever, the student should be spending the same number of hours out of class as in class to do their work. Some of that time, some of that additional independent study and homework time will be spent doing tasks that have been set by the teacher. Okay, but we also ask students to really push themselves and to kind of use some of that time to explore around the subject, to use the library in each of the base schools to kind of pursue wider reading around the subject, to explore different kind of MOOCs. They're called MOOCs, Mass Online Open Access Courses. There's a wealth of information and there's a wealth of study support out there, and students really should be using that time to kind of explore what they are really passionate about, as well as completing tasks that are directly related to their exam qualifications. Okay, thank you. One of the ways in which people communicate the homework tasks and the independent work is, in fact, the main way is, electronically at least, is using Teams. So all classes have a Microsoft Teams team, I should say, and students will have a login that will work across schools, and that's where work is set. There are always a few students that have some teething problems with accessing Teams in different schools, in schools that are different to their base schools, but you know, be patient, go and talk to your tutor, talk to the head of year, because it's really important that you get that sorted, because that is the main way that we communicate all sorts of different things. It's homework, but it's also the extracurricular opportunities that are so vital. Okay, and now I think I'm going to hand over, talking about enrichment opportunities, to Rebecca Russell.
Yes, hello, welcome everyone. So as Associate Director of LaSWAP, one of the things that I'm responsible for is sort of coordinating the enrichment offer that we have across LaSWAP. And by enrichment, we mean really everything that students can get involved in outside of lesson time that's not directly related to their particular subjects, but other things that are on offer. So you can see some of the kind of examples of what we mean by enrichment there, all the different clubs and sports and volunteering opportunities and so on. Thank you. So we went through this kind of yesterday with the Year 12 cohort, talking to them really about why it's so important to get involved in our enrichment activities. And there's a kind of list of all the different reasons there why enrichment or extracurricular and supercurricular activities are beneficial to them. In particular, it's about giving them a balanced experience of sixth form. So they're going to be working really hard in their subjects, but also making sure that they're doing things that they enjoy and additional things that are a way of building different skills that they've perhaps not done before, skills that are going to help them with their university applications, with their job and apprenticeship applications. Perhaps they're going to be learning new skills such as a language, or taking an interest in a hobby that they've never shown an interest in before, had the opportunity to do before, and also and you're meeting new people. It's one of the key ways of meeting students that are based at the other schools that they don't have lessons with. So it's a great opportunity to get involved in something new. And there's such a range of activities that are both linked to subjects or just for fun, or are mentoring opportunities or leadership opportunities, that there really should be something for everyone. And we know that universities and employers really love to see enrichment activities, supercurricular activities that students have done as part of their application process. And I know Laura's going to talk about that a bit more when she talks about UCAS in a minute. But they say that that's what sets students apart, really, is as well as the grades, as well as the subjects they're studying, what other things have they done that make them a well-rounded individual and show who they really are as a person and what they learned from doing those different sorts of skills. So the sorts of activities offered across the SWAP then are numerous and varied, all different kinds of sport and music, things like debating, lots of sort of social action groups or identity and culture groups around specific identities that students want to all come together and discuss. Many different leadership opportunities, for example, being ambassadors at our open events, and doing leadership things with younger students, getting involved in political or social issues. There's a whole range of different things, and also things that are run perhaps by subject teachers that help support their studies in particular subjects as well. So the way it works on a day-to-day basis is all 4 schools will offer different activities. So some of those are just limited to students at that base school or students that study a particular subject, if it's something that supports their study in that subject. But most enrichment activities are open to all Year 12 students across the SWAP, so that they get that opportunity to go to other schools and they get a bigger range of activities that are on offer. We have timetabled Wednesday period 5 for enrichment activities. So most students won't have a lesson Wednesday period 5, and some students also won't have lesson period 4 on a Monday. So that is one of the key times when they might be able to attend enrichment activities that have been put on across the 4 schools. But also there will be enrichment activities at lunchtimes and after school on different days. Some of them are weekly, some are fortnightly, some are half-termly. It depends on the activity and the availability of the staff members that are running those activities. But what we really advise, sorry, see the spelling mistake there, but we advise students to do at least one activity each term. So it might be that they pick something and they stick with that for the whole year. It might be that they try lots of different activities. They get really involved with more than one enrichment activity, or they're doing some in-school enrichment activities, and then they're taking part in an outside school mentoring or leadership program that we have advertised to them. Or it might be that they want to try one different thing each term so that they meet different people. And new opportunities come up as we progress through the year, and we advertise those as and when they come up. So the main way in which students find out about our enrichment offer, again, as lots of people have already mentioned, is the importance of tutorial period. So that is a key time each week when tutors or heads of year will advertise specific things that are coming up. For example, if a university is holding taster talks or masterclasses, if there are any kind of schemes to apply for with specific application deadlines, all of those kind of things, we put them on Teams as well. So it's really important that the young people are checking their Teams at least once a day to make sure that they're not missing out on anything that they might want to look into. We put things into the LaSWAP newsletter as well, which you will be emailed regularly, and also put up posters in the different sixth form common areas at the schools as well. So there's lots of different ways in which they can find out about these different activities. I'm in the process at the moment of collating all the different activities that are on offer across the schools. I've already got a big list of all the things that are on offer, and some have already potentially started at your child's base school. They might already be going to something. But once this timetable is finalised, which we're hoping will be by the end of this week, beginning of next week, that will be sent out to all students so they can see quite clearly in one place what the different activities are, which school they're at, who it's for, and when and where it's on, so that they know exactly where they can go. And again, that will be put on Teams and also in the LaSWAP newsletter, so that you can see it as well once it's being finalised. As well as all the stuff that we put on offer, we very much encourage students to be proactive in this themselves, not only because it means that they can set up something that they're specifically interested in, but because there's enormous value in creating your own club and running your own club for the skills that you develop from just the process of doing that. So that if there are activities that they want to be involved in but aren't on offer, then they can set up their own club or society based around a hobby, an identity, a subject they're passionate about. I've already had a student come to me saying they want to set up an astronomy club, and there's a process for how to do that, which I've shared the slides with the Year 12s in more detail. But essentially, there is a form which they can click on there, where they fill in the details of their activity, and that comes through to me. And then once they've got a member of staff that is prepared to be sort of attached to it, as to be the point of contact, and they've got a space, we can start looking into setting that up as soon as possible. And you can see some of the examples of activities that have been started by students just over the last couple of years. So the more of those, the better, because student-led activities always get a really good uptake as other students want to kind of be involved with things that their peers have created. Finally, just 3 programs to flag to you at this point are these 3 different sort of mentoring schemes that are open to all Year 12 students across the SWAP. They've had presentations from all 3 of these organisations, or through us advertising them. All 3 of these programs are different. They're run by different people, and they operate in slightly different ways with slightly different focuses. But the key things that they all have in common is, if you get onto any of these programs, you get a mentor in a real world job, who you'll meet up with a certain number of times a year. They all provide workshops Career ready, for example, those are all very much based on becoming career ready, so work skills. The future leaders one, those workshops on all kinds of social action issues, as well as UCAS preparation and being an advocate in your community. Alt jump, they're all very much career based as well. So students who get onto these programs get great career advice, they get university preparation, they get to hear from inspirational speakers, and they get to meet lots of other students, not just at LaSWAP, but across Camden or across London, or even further afield. And they get to do sort of team building and other skill building events. They all take quite a lot of commitment, and there's an application process for all three of them, but you can see the details about each of the specific programs by clicking on the links, which you'll obviously be able to do when this PowerPoint gets sent out to you. The Future Leaders one, the deadline is this Friday, so that has the most urgency, but do encourage your child to apply for at least one of these, so that we get a really good uptake, because all the students that do them say how amazing they are in terms of all that sort of preparation for higher education and the workplace. I think that's me done, and now I'm handing over to Laura.
Thank you, Rebecca. Okay, so just a quick bit from me thinking about destinations and what happens after year 13, because it probably seems like a really long way away. They've only just started year 12. But a lot of the things that we do at LaSWAP is to prepare them for when they leave us, be that to go to university, to start an apprenticeship, to start work, to take a gap year, or whatever else it is that they want to do. So the majority of our students do apply for and go to university. We've got some excellent destinations, some of which you'll see in a second. And we provide really robust support for our students, preparing them for those different applications, as I say, be it a UCAS application, but it's not just university we're focused on. We also provide lots of information support around apprenticeships, around students who are taking a year out, and we also carry on that support for students who defer their applications or may leave us and decide to apply that little bit later. Just to give you a little taster of some of the places that our students go, here are some of our 2023 year 13 leavers. Lots of sort of Russell Group universities, lots of really competitive courses, but also lots of really interesting and unusual courses as well that our students go on to. And all of these students here are a combination students who've done they're a combination of students who've done A-levels and students who've done BTEC qualifications as well. We have excellent progression for our students on all of our pathways, including our 3-year sixth form. So just a little bit about what students are going to see in terms of HE support in this term and moving into next term. There will be 2 webinars coming up that will be promoted via the LaSWAP newsletter, and they will be aimed at students and families students who are applying for, firstly, early entry courses, so Oxford and Cambridge, and also students who are applying for medicine, veterinary and dentistry courses, because these are courses that need quite a lot of preparation from early in year 12. We also have lots of links with different universities and different colleges who do come in and do talks for us. There will be the LaSWAP aspirational team, which will be up and running soon for students who are intending to apply to competitive universities or for competitive courses. And moving into the spring term, we take all of our students to UCAS Discovery, and we begin our university visits and our UCAS application workshops. Again, as several of my colleagues have said, just to emphasize the importance of our tutorial program, most of this preparation for HE or other destinations takes place in tutorial and in that Monday period 3. That is when the key times are for students. So please do ensure that your students are attending those periods, getting the information they need, hearing the deadlines, and being able to take up all of these opportunities. Can I ask you please to check the LaSWAP newsletter every fortnight, because that is absolutely full of opportunities, not only from us, but from some of our some universities that we are associated with, from other businesses, universities, employers across London. These are compiled in that LaSWAP newsletter, which goes out by email every fortnight. It does always have LaSWAP in the subject, so please make sure that you are looking out for it. If you are not getting that newsletter, please let somebody at the base school know, because it may be that your email address isn't quite right on our system and it is not coming through to you. If you do have any questions about destinations, HE or similar, you can get in touch with me by email or via, if you message via your student's base school to ask them to put you in touch with me, or look out for my upcoming webinars in the next couple of months. And I'll just pass you back over to Ella.
Sorry, there we go. Okay, so I am just going to finish by just talking you through a few key dates. I know these came up, some of these came up in the question and answers as well. So we know that despite kind of lots of conversations that young people will have had with you or with us or with their tutors and friends, that sometimes people select courses that aren't quite right for them. So we do provide a kind of window where students do have the potential to change courses. There are some kind of quite strict parameters around that. So the students have to qualify for the course that they want to move to. It will be dependent on class size. But if that is something that a young person is wanting to do, they will need to go and get a course change form from their head of year, and they need to complete that, and then they need to hand it back in. We would ask that you sign that as well, so that you're aware that they are changing their program of study, because obviously at this stage it can impact on where they go when they leave school. So they hand that in with the enrolment assignment as well to their head of year. So those two things go in together, and then directors will look at course numbers and get back to students to let them know whether it's been possible for them to change courses. The deadline for that is the 29th of September. That is when the decisions are made. So we encourage students to do it sooner rather than later, because obviously the sooner that they are getting a form in, the sooner we can start to kind of make sure that the process is fair, but also that students don't miss too much of the lessons. The 6th of October is then what we would call the end of induction. So we do encourage, we talk about the first month of year 12 as the induction period. So we know that, as I said, sometimes the step up to sixth form can feel quite overwhelming for young people. You're kind of immersed in 3 subjects, whereas maybe before you were doing 10 or 11 subjects over the course of 2 weeks. Or sometimes students are only immersed in 1 subject for kind of 30 hours. So it's really important that we are kind of supporting in that induction period. And there will be a report that is sent home to you at the end of that. What we do is we don't ask for a grade, because we know it's quite early. We want to encourage students to kind of work and develop their potential in the subjects. What we do is that you'll get a report that says whether a student is course ready with intervention, or a concern. And if a student is being highlighted by teachers as being a concern, you'll be contacted by heads of year, and we'll kind of discuss again the program of study, what kind of support people need. We've then got half term. For students who are doing GCSE retakes, they take place over a week and a day after half term. So you'll have 4 days it's the Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, and then the following Monday for maths and English retakes. The results of those I haven't put up, but the results of those come out in January. So if for students who haven't got maths or English, it's a really, really essential it's a really great opportunity if they can achieve that 4 at that point of the academic year. It's a real kind of it's really great to get that out of the way. Our first mock assessment period then takes place between the 8th and the 12th of January. Those are going to take place in class to kind of start to prepare. Students will be given lots of support and guidance by teachers. This isn't about kind of catching students out. This is about preparing them as best as possible for what those real exams will look like at the end of year 13. We know that some students, if they're doing vocational programs of study, will also have real exams over the course of this year, and subjects will let you know when those are. Parents' evening, which is an opportunity to meet class teachers, that will take place on the 14th of March at Ackland Burley School, and more details of that will follow. And then we have our end of year assessments that we call HSEs. They are at the end of April. They always feel quite early, but what I would say is that the reason they're at that point is around when GCSEs and A-levels start. They actually start formally the next week. There are some really big exams the next week. And it provides us with enough time to really kind of, I guess, work with those students who to provide. So for students who really excel, it provides a really great springboard for them to think about early entrance. But for students who are maybe struggling a little bit, it also gives us time to put in the right support to help them and to make sure that actually they're progressing through on the right program of study. And then work experience for all students, that takes place in the week of the 15th of July. And that's a week where all students will be off timetable, and support for work experience will be, that will come through the tutorial period, and that takes place on a Monday, period 3. That is everything from us. I know it's, as I said, a bit of a whistle-stop tour, and I know there's still probably some questions. So we will all stay online. So please don't hesitate to add some questions into the question and answer box. But equally, thank you so much for attending. If you do want to get in contact with heads of year, or if there's particular information that you want to pass on about your child, please don't hesitate to do that. And thank you very much for coming, albeit remotely. Hope you have an enjoyable rest of the evening.
There was one question there just about recapping on the course change process. All of the course change documentation is available. You may have answered it already, Ella. I was just going to answer in case a few people. It's just going to go on the live ones. All the course change documentation is available in all of the 4 schools. And the most important thing is your child fills in a form this week and gets it back to their head of year. But the big caveat is that they may not be able to change if groups are already full or they don't meet the entry requirements. We do our absolute level best to facilitate changes where we can. It isn't always possible, and we do have to say that, just because of we are oversubscribed and some of our groups are big.
I can just add a little bit to that. There's a question there about predicted grades. No, predicted grades aren't just based on end of year assessments. What I would say is that our approach to the current UCAS or the university application process asks us to give a predicted grade. We would also always want to give students the best opportunity to get into the universities that they want to go to. So we're always optimistic in those predictions. What I'd also say is that we do encourage students to be as realistic as possible. So we don't want students to be applying for courses that they don't qualify for. A student in year 13 talked to me today about applying for an economics course, but she doesn't have maths A level, so that changes where she applies to. So we provide the guidance that allows students the best opportunity to progress to where they want to go. So they're optimistic but also realistic, and not just based on end of year assessments. They will be thinking about the whole performance of the student.
Hello. I think Flora is just about to answer this question, but just answer the question about that each school does have a HE advisor who supports students. At the moment, your student can speak to their form tutor about that, and they will find out through their form who that HE advisor is. At Acklenburley, it's me, for example. and they will be introduced to that person through year 12. But if they've got any questions about HE destinations, etc., now they can ask their form tutor, or as I say, they can ask their form tutor to get in touch with me, and I'm more than happy to answer questions. Thank you very much, everyone. I think we have just about worked through most of the questions there. Flora is just answering one more. If you do still have any questions, please do get in touch, as I say, with one of us or with your child's tutor or head of year at their base school, and they will be able to answer any more questions that you have.
Sorry, I was typing an answer, but then I've decided to answer it live, if that's okay with everybody. So about EPQ, yes, it's like it is very difficult in some ways, in some instances, to narrow down a topic, but that's what the lessons are for. So the EPQ, you know, there is a taught program with an EPQ experienced teacher who will help your son or your daughter kind of choose a topic and develop that project. So please don't worry about that. Just make sure that your son or daughter is talking to their tutor and making sure that they're enrolled on that course, and then the teacher will help them to achieve success in that.
Thank you very much, Flora. Okay, again, thank you to everyone for coming this evening. Thank you to all my colleagues, and we are going to finish the webinar. Thank you again.